Good morning. Here we have the Raffles Girls Primary School Prelim Exams for Maths, Primary 6, Paper 1. In the first video, we'll be looking at Paper 1, Section A. In the second video, we'll be looking at Paper 1, Section B. And in the third video, in this series, we'll be looking at Paper 2. So let's begin by looking at the first question. You can see here what I've done is I've already gone through the solutions and I've put down the solutions for each of these. So we just very quickly go through the working out to make sure that you understand how we can derive at the solutions. All right, so let's have a look at this first question here. We have here, what is the value of the digit 4 in this number? And this number here is 364798. So here we have the 4, that's 4 thousands. All right, and the 4 thousands, rather than saying 4 thousands, because there's no answer here that says 4 thousands, we can also have, we split it here, and that's 40 hundred. Right? Because 2 zeros, that's 100, so it's 40 hundredths, and here we have the correct answer. Second question, rounding off 72590 to the nearest 100th. So here we have 5 being the 100th, we round it up, so that becomes 6. So it's 72,600 will be rounded up to the nearest 100. And that's the answer there. So let's have a look at this third question. Third question, which of the following fractions is equal to 4 and 5/8? Now the answer here is for us to convert this into a fraction without any numbers in front here. So 4 times 8, 4 times 8 is 32. So 32 over 8, that's 4, plus 5 over 8. So that should give us the answer of 37 over 8. And that's the correct answer there. Okay. So let's have a look at the next page. Here we have arrange the following. Arrange the following fractions from smallest to largest. I think the trick here is to have a common denominator. So the common denominator here, we can make that 18 because 6 doesn't go into the 9, so we'll have a common denominator as 18. So 5 over 3, let's look at this one first. 5 over 3 is equal to what over 18? All right, so we multiply the bottom by 6, multiply the top by 6 as well, so that's equal to 30 over 18. Now let's have a look at this second one here. Firstly, let's change that into a fraction. So 1 and 5, 6 is equal to 1 times 8, similar to what we did before. 1 times 8 is 8, plus 5, which is 13. So 13 over 1, that's 6 rather, I made a mistake there. 1 and 5, 6, so 1 times 6 is 6 plus 5, that's 11. So 11 over 6. So 11 over 6, what's that over 18? All right. Here we times 3, and there we times 3 as well. So 33 over 18. Now let's convert this one here now. 11 over 9 is equal to what over 18? And the answer there is times 2, so it's 22 over 18. So which is the smallest? The smallest here is this one, that's the smallest. The second is this one, right? So that's the smallest. That's the second. And here we have the largest. All right. So the answer here is smallest, 11/9, can be either one of these two. And the middle one is 30 on 18, which is the same as 5 over 3. So that's that one there. So that's the answer there, and that's correct. All right. Now let's have a look at this question 5. Here we got words describing the number. So we've got 600. All right. We also have 2 tenths. Now 2 tenths. Keep in mind the TH, the THS, so that's not 20, but rather 0.2, right? So 0.2. And 4 thousandths is 0.004, all right? So that's tenths, and that's thousandths. I keep in mind again the TH. So 4 thousandths, we got 3 numbers there indicating thousandths. So we add all of that up, we've got 600.204, and that's the answer there. Right. Let's have a look at this question 6. Which of the following fractions is closest to 1/7? Now there's several ways to do this. One is you can possibly do the same technique as what we did earlier on for question 4 up here, right? And find some kind of a common denominator. Let's see what 1/7 is. 1/7. And let's see if we can find a common denominator here with all these numbers. And I think the easiest way to do this is to make this over times 100, so over 700. So what's 1/7 equating to for what number over 700? We multiply top and bottom by 100. So 1/7 is really 100 divided by 700. Right? So let's see if we can get a common denominator for each one of these answers, and let's see which one of them is the closest. Right? So for this one, 1/4 is what over 700? We can see 700 divided by 4, that's 300 divided by 2 is 350, so 175. So 1/4 times 1 times 175, and 4 times 175 is 700, so 175 there. All right, so you can see it's fairly way off, 175 versus 100 there. Then the next one, the next alternative, we got 1/10. What's 1/10 over equal to something over 700? We times top and bottom 70. So 10 times 70 is 700. 1 times 70 is 70. The next one, what is that over 700? How many times does 20 go into 700? We've got 5. 5 times 7 is 35. Okay, so 20 times 35 is 700. 3 times 35 is 105. And let's look at the last one here. 7/50th. What's 7/50th equating to if some answer divided by 700? So 50 times 14. 50 times 14 is 700. So 7 times 14, let's do a quick calculation here. 14 times 7, 4 times 7 is 28, so 28, and 1 times 7 is 7, 8, 9, 98, so that's equal to 98. All right, so which one of these is closest to 1/7? Let's look at these numbers here over the denominator of 700. That's 100 over there. Which is closest to 100? That's closest to 100, so that's the correct answer there. All right. Okay, let's turn over to the next page. And let's have a look at this question here up the top. Which of the following is closest to the reading shown on the scale below? So that's 50, and that's 52. So that must be 51, and that must be 51.5. So it's just a little bit less than 51.5, possibly 51.4 or thereabouts. Which one is closest to 51.4 or 51.5? This one here, and that's the answer. Which of the following is the same as 7090 meters? Now we know that 7,000 meters is equal to 1 kilometer, right? And here we also got 90 meters, right? And that of course totals up to 7090 meters. So we have here 1 kilometer plus 90 meters. Sorry, 7 kilometers, and 90 meters. So that's the correct answer there. Yeah. Let's look at the next page now. The figure below is made of 4 identical rectangles. The perimeter of the figure is 28 centimeters. And what is the length of A? Right. Well, first thing to note here is that this may not be necessarily drawn to scale. You can see that these 4 rectangles are identical, although it's drawn a little bit taller than it should be. All right. So here we have A as well. That's A. And here we also have A, and that's also A over there. All right. Now let's call this part here B. All right, that's B. There. Okay. So let's call that B. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4A plus 1, 2. 2B is equal to 28 centimeters. All right. Now we also know that 3 of these B's, now that's B as well, and that's B, and that's B, because that's the edge of the rectangle. 3 B's is equal to the same as an A. So we also know that 3B is equal to 1 single A. All right? Or in other words, B is equal to 1/3 A. All right? Okay, so hopefully that makes sense to you. Now let's put this back. Let's put this back into this equation here. All right? Put that back into that equation here by substituting for B. All right? So we got 4A plus 2 of these. All right? Because that's what B is. So let's call it B there. So 2B equals to 28. All right? So let's work this out and find out what A is. We got 4A plus 2/3 A equals 28. Add the 4 and the 2/3, so we got 4 and 2/3 A equals 28. All right. Now let's convert this into a fraction. Got 4 times 3 is 12. 12 plus 2 is 14. So 14 over 3A is equal to 28. All right. So what is A? A is therefore equal to 28 times 3, right? Because you multiply by 3 on both sides, and divide by 14 over there. So what's the answer there? The answer there is, that's 28 times 3 is, that's 84, and 84 divided by 14. So 84 divided by 14. Just do a quick mental calculation there. If you want, you can do some long division, but I think that's easy enough. It's a nice whole number, so that's 6. So the answer there is 6. Now you can approach this question in a slightly different way by a process of elimination, and let's see how we can do that. I'll just use a different colored pen. Let's say if that was 8, right? Is 8 the correct answer? Well, 8, we got 4 A's. 1, 2, 3, 4. 8 times 4 is already 32. Now that can't be right because the perimeter is supposed to be 28, exactly 28. And that we got even without the 2 B's, all right, we've got 32. So that's out. That's definitely wrong. All right. What about 7? 7 times 4 is equal to 28. That means B will have to be 0. Right? And that's not possible because if B was 0, then A will be 0 as well. Right? So that's definitely wrong. Now what about this one here? If A was 2 times 4, because we've got 4 A's over here, 2 times 4 is 8, which means that B's, the 2 B's, will have to be 10 each. Right? 10 and 10, and 8 will give you 28. But that can't be right because 10 plus 10 plus 10, it doesn't match up. We've got 30 is equal to A. That doesn't match up as well, so that's wrong. Okay, so you can either do this by a process of elimination or otherwise use algebra to do it the long way. All right. Now let's have a look at the next question here. The easiest way to do this, I think, is to identify a base first and see which one is not folded into a cube. So let's say that this one here, let's say that's the base. Fold that up, that's a side. Fold this side up, that's also a side. That also becomes a side. And twist that around, this becomes the top, and flip that down, this becomes a side as well. So that's okay, that's a cube. Let's call this the base here. Flip this up, there's a side, there's a side, flip this up, there's a side. Once that's flipped up, turn this around, there's also a side, and there's a top. So that's fine. All right. Now what about this one here? Let's call this one the base. Flip this up, there's a side. Flip this whole thing up, there's a side as well. Fold this in, there's a side. Fold that in, there's a side, and that's the top. So that's fine. All these three are fine so far. Let's have a look at this last one here. That's the base. Flip this up, so that's the side. Once that is flipped up, fold the top over, so that's the top. This one is the side. Fold this across, this is the side, and that one flipped over, that will be a top again. So we can see we got two tops here, right? And of course, we have a gap on this side here as well. So this is not a net of a cube, so that's the correct answer there. All right. Okay, let's have a look at this next one here. The pie chart represents countries visited by a group of children during the school holidays. 20% of children visited Hong Kong, all right, so that's 20% there. And 360 visited Malaysia, so that's 360 there. How many people visited Thailand? So that's the question mark. All right. Now, firstly, let's look in terms of percentages. We have here right angle 90-degree angles, right? We all know that if we draw a circle and we got 90 degrees, obviously these will also be 90 degrees, right? And we have 0.25 or 25% for each quarter. So this is really a quarter here. So that's 25%, and that's also 25%, right? So how many percent is Malaysia? Well, if that's 25 and that's 25 and that's 20, so you got 25, 25, and 20. That's 70% altogether. So which means that Malaysia is 30%. Okay, so 30% of students equates to 360 people. All right. So now let's work out what does, if we know what 30% is, we can work out how many children is 25%. So 30% equates to 360 students. And what is 25% equates to? Well, whenever we have a situation like this, the easiest way to solve it is to write it like this. And always remember, this divided by this multiplied by this will give you the answer. Okay, so we go anti-clockwise direction. 360 divided by 30 times 25. 360 divided by 30 times 25, and that should give us the answer. All right. So what is this equal to? Let's cross this out. All right, cross out the zeros. 36 divided by 3 is 12. 12 times 25 is equal to 300. 12 times 25. One quick easy way to do that is to times 100 and then divide by 4. So that's 1,200 divided by 4. That's 600, 300. So 300 is the correct answer. And here we have 300 as well. All right. So let's move on to the next question here. Jane stood at the center of a circle. That's Jane over here. Her 8 friends stood around her and spaced themselves out equally as shown below. Jane made a 90-degree anti-clockwise turn followed by a 135-degree turn. In the end, Jane was facing Emma. Who was she facing at first? Or it doesn't matter who she was facing at first. Let's pretend that she's facing Anna first. All right. Let's pretend that she's facing Anna first. All right. So firstly, she made a 90-degree anti-clockwise turn. So now she'll be facing Emma, for example. if she was facing Anna first. All right, so 90 degrees over there, followed by 135 degrees. Let's use a different colored pen here. Followed by 135 degrees. Now 135 degrees from here, 135 degrees will bring you to here. So that's 135 degrees over there. Okay, all right. So if she was facing Anna first, in the end, she'll be facing Misha, right? But the answer here is, in the end, Jane was facing Emma, right? She was facing Emma. So, where was she at first? Well, you can see here, this is the end, and this is the start. The start is always one stop to the left, right? So if she was facing Emma in the end, then one stop to the left, right? She would have started at Rena, right? So Rena is the right answer over there. Yeah. Okay, now let's have a look at this question 13. Jimmy is baking some cookies. In 30 minutes, he can bake 10% of the cookies, right? And after every 2 hours of baking, he needs to stop to rest for 1 hour. Right? How long would Jimmy take to bake 80% of the cookies? Okay, so we have here, let's divide that into 3. All right, so that's in 30 minutes, this is 1 hour, this is second hour, right? And this is the rest for 1 hour. All right, and after that, we'll do 1 more hour, all right, and 1 more hour there. All right, so let's see how many cookies he can bake. In 30 minutes, he baked 10%, which means 1 hour, he bakes 20%. The next hour, he bakes also another 20%. He then rests for 1 hour, so he doesn't bake anything at all, that's 0%. The next 1 hour, he bakes 20%, and the next hour, he bakes 20%. So here we have reached 80%, 20, 20, 20, and 20, that's 80%, and we've done that in 5 hours, including the 1 hour rest in between. So 5 hours altogether. Okay, now let's have a look at question 14. And I think this is where it gets a little bit harder. This is a pretty tough question, I think, in my opinion. But let's have a look to see how we can solve it. Let's read this and let's get the information out and just write out the important bits of information that we have here. So Mary has 1,360 yellow beads. Yellow is 1360. And some green beads, we do not know what those are yet. And after buying some red beads, that's 170. And let's call green X for now. Yeah. So after buying 170 red beads, 20% of the beads are red and green. Right? So this here constitutes 20% of all her beads. Right? So what does it mean to have a percentage? Well, percentage basically means that what you have divided by the total. So what do we have here? What we have here is X plus 70. All right. How much do we have altogether? Altogether, we have 1360 plus X plus 70. All right. So what we have divided by altogether, all right, that is equal to 20%. All right. Let's call that 0.2 because we know 0.2 is 20%. All right. So let's simplify that together. Sorry, that's 170. I made a mistake there. And that's 170 as well. Okay, so let's see if we can work this out. So X plus 170, let's simplify that. 1360 plus 170, that should equal to 15X plus 1530. Okay, so that equals to 20%. All right. Okay, so now let's see how we can solve that. We're going to bring this portion here up to multiply it together with 0.2. So we're going to have here x plus 170 is equal to 0.2 x plus 1530. All right. That's 0.2 x plus, well, we know 10% of that is 153, so 20% of that is 306. Okay, so we're gonna bring this over. So x minus 1x minus 0.2x, so that's 0.8x is equal to, and 306 minus 170, because we minus 170 from both sides, and that should give us 136. Okay, all right. So x is equal to 136 divided by 0.8. Let's multiply both sides by 10, so it's equal to 1360 divided by 8, and we can do long division. Yeah, so we got long division 8, 1360. Here we've got 1, and how many left over? We've got 5. Carry over 5, so 8 times 7 is exactly 56. 0. So x is equal to 170. All right. So now we know that x is equal to 170. All right. What's the question? What percentage of beads were red in the end? All right. Well, we see that green and red is actually the same. So what percentage is only red over the total is 170 over the total of that. 170 over 1360 plus 170 plus 170. All right. And that should give us an answer of 10%. Now, I don't really need to do any calculation here because you can see it's quite simply, 170, 170. If that's 20%, that means half of that, because these two numbers are the same, half of that should be 10%. Right? So that's 10% there. If these numbers were different, however, then you need to do a long division, right, and see what the answer is. The answer here should be 0.1 or equal to 10%. Okay, now let's have a look at this last question here. This last question, Jenny bought a bag and a wallet during a sale. Each item is given a 10% discount. In total, she paid $450 for the 2 items. All right, so 10% off, which means you only paid 90%. All right, so let's call the bag B, and let's call the wallet W for wallet. All right, so 90% or 0.9, 90% of the price of the bag plus 90% of the price of the wallet is equal to $450. All right, so that's what we know so far. All right, now let's have a read of the next part. Her savings for the bag, all right, the savings for the bag was 4 times the savings for the wallet. Okay, now let's see how we can write that in some kind of equation. All right. So the savings for the bag, now you save 10%. Right? So you save 10% of the bag, that's the savings for the bag, is equal to 4 times the savings for the wallet. Savings for wallet is also 10% of the price. Right? 4 times the savings of the wallet. Okay, so now let's see how we can simplify this. We got 0.1 B, 10% of B is equal to 4 times 10%. So that's 0.4 price of the wallet. We want to have the W on the one side. All right, so let's make it simple. Let's times both sides by 10. So that's B is equal to 4W, right? Or, in other words, W is equal to B divided by 4, or 1/4 B. All right? We can also write that as 0.25 B if you like. All right. So now we know what W is, so let's put W back into this first equation here. All right. So what's this first equation? 0.9 B plus 0.9, and we know that's W, right? 0.9 W. So W is equal to the same thing as 0.25 B. 0.25 B is equal to 450, right? So that's from that first equation there. So let's work this out and find out what the price of the bag was before the sale. So that's 0.9 B plus 90% of 9 times 0.9 times 0.25. If you want, you can do some quick calculation, but this bit really just a quarter. So half of 0.9 is 0.45. Half again of 0.45 is 22.5, so 0.225. So 0.225 B, right, equals 450. All right. So add these two together. 0.9 plus 0.225 is 1.125 B is equal to 450. So now that's fairly simple. What is B? B therefore is equal to 450 divided by 1.125. And that equals to 400 exactly. All right. So 450 divided by 1.125, that's just slightly under 450. All right. It's definitely not 40. It's definitely not 50. Definitely not 100. This one is pretty close. So even if we don't want to do the full long division to find the exact answer, we know by a process of deduction that the answer there is going to be 400. All right. Okay, so that's it for section A, and I'll see you in the next video where we'll attempt section B.